Peace and blessing, family. It's your man, Maarifa, and welcome to Bible study. That's right, Bible study. It's Sunday, so you know what we're doing, man. We're coming straight from the Bible, reading these scriptures each and every Sunday so we can gain a deeper knowledge and understanding of what you claim to believe, okay? We're continuing our series. Right now, we're in chapter 8 of Genesis, and we're going forward, digging deep like we always do, you know what I'm saying? So, truth seekers, if you're here and you on this channel, subscribe, comment, leave comments. Let's have a discussion and dialogue, talk about, the scriptures and talk about what we're reading and stuff like that. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Hit that subscribe button, you know what I'm saying? So you can subscribe to the channel and never miss a video. That whenever we drop a video, you'll be notified. You dig? So that's what you want to do. So, like we always do at this time, we coming straight from the King James Bible version. King James Version. This is what we do. We reading straight from the scriptures, all right? So we getting right into it. Let's not waste no time. We're going to finish chapter 8, starting at verse 1. All right. So it says, "And God remembered Noah and every living thing and all the cattle that was with him in the ark. And God made a wind to pass over the earth, and the waters assuaged," which means it was less intense, okay? So going back and saying God remembered Noah. So God forgot that, that he was pouring this rain on the earth, destroying the earth and killing the earth. He just forgot about Noah and the little boat that he told him to build and everything like that, right? So he said, oh, wait a minute. I did tell this dude Noah to build a boat. Yeah, him and his people are on that boat. I might want to go ahead and make a wind come and, slow down this rain a little bit in this water. All right. So then the fountains also of the deep and the windows of heaven were stopped, and the rain from heaven was restrained, and the waters returned from off the earth continually. And after the end of the 150 days, the waters were abated. Means it was less intense. It calmed down. All right. 150 days they were on this boat, allegedly, without fresh water. Okay, where's the fresh water coming from? Human beings and animals normally can't go that long without having fresh water. 150 days without fresh water, come on now. You got to think about it. You know what I'm saying? I think it's how many days? Is it 5? I believe you need without water before you die, because the body, needs water in order to survive. All right, fresh water, not salt water. All right, so how were they able to survive 150 days in a boat without fresh water? You had all those animals allegedly in the boat, along with 8 people, Noah and his sons and their wives and then his wife. You know what I'm saying? So how? Where the water supply? Anyway, but verse 4, "And the ark rested in the 7th month on the 7th day of the month upon the mountains of Ararat." Mount Ararat, okay? Very significant part right here in verse 4, Mount Ararat. All right, so it said the ark rested, but the waters were not abated. So how did they know, first of all, that they were in Mount Ararat? Second of all, Mount Ararat, the significance of that is that mountain that they're discussing is in Turkey, Eastern Turkey, okay? Right now, today, in the year 2022, those mountains, Mount Ararat, is in Eastern Turkey, near Iran, Armenia, okay? In that region. They're giving you clues. Again, the author of this story, I done told you about Francis Bacon several times. If you watched all 7 other videos, you'll know that Francis Bacon, the author of this story, white European French Mason, okay? He's given the clues of the beginning of the white European and how they started, all right, and where they came from. Mount Ararat in Turkey, Iran, Armenia. These are the white Europeans in that area. Georgia, Caucasus Mountains. These are the areas in which the white European came from, all right? So that's how they originated. They were the albinos, all right? The albinos, they originated in that area. And they're giving clues in the story right here. Genesis chapter 8, verse 4 is telling you right there, Mount Ararat. This is where they're going to start over. Okay, remember I told you the flood symbolizes change. Change is occurring. You know, it's going to be a change and a shift. All right. So it's telling you where they came from and how they began their beginnings. That's the location. All right. In the beginning, when they were first talking about Eden being in Ethiopia, which is in Africa, then they moved to Mount Ararat. Okay. During this allegedly. Okay. So that's telling you, that's giving you some indication that those children, you know, the albinos were taken up north, you know, by the Africans. So the melanated beings, you know, Dravidians, the melanated Dravidians who had albinos took those babies up north and dropped them off because they had, you know, not able to survive in the sun in Africa. Okay. So if you're reading the story and you following along, it's telling you, you know, Adam and Eve got kicked out of the Garden of Eden. Then they went to the east of Eden. Okay. East of Eden is Iraq, Iran, Armenia, Turkey, east of Eden, east of Africa. Okay. So it's telling you when Adam and Eve, you know, ate of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, their eyes were open. They realized they were naked. That meant they were different than other people in Africa. They were different. They realized that. Okay. So it's giving you clues in the story. It's telling you about true history and what really happened. You got to be able to decipher it and understand. Because if you don't know true history, this stuff will not make sense to you. This Bible, reading at the top, is not meant to be read literally. You have to dig deeper. And that's what we're doing with Esoteric Bible Study. We're digging deeper into the scriptures so we can find out and discover the truth. Okay? So when you're looking at it from this perspective, and you're looking at it how Noah and his family are on this boat, and they're placing themselves now, the new beginning that is starting, allegedly, in Mount Ararat, which is located in Turkey, East Turkey, Armenia. It's telling you where the white European came from. So the albino babies that were, you know, born of melanated beings, melanated Africans, those albino babies, they took them north because albinos can't survive in the sun too long. If you know an albino, you know they can't stand being in the sun that long. They don't, their skin is not, you know, they don't have no melanin to protect them from the sun. You know, the sun is very, you know, dangerous to the albino. So they had to go up north where the sun was not as high, as not as prevalent. It was less sun, less daylight and stuff like that. So they was hiding in caves, living in caves in the dark. Okay. So that's where the Caucasian came from, the dark. They was in them caves. All right. That's historical facts, man. You gotta, that's why they came up with the caveman and the cave. All you see those cartoons, you know, depicted in cartoons and stuff. They were telling the story of their history. Okay. They depict all of those things in books and, you know, they say the Neanderthal was the caveman and how they created fire and all of that stuff like that. And then they created the wheel, you know, you can see it in the Geico commercials, the old Geico commercials where they had the old cavemans and stuff like that. They talking about the history of their people. You got to understand this stuff. You got to know and be able to recognize what is going on. So if you don't understand true history, if you don't understand what really happened, it'll go right over your head. You will miss it. You know what I'm saying? But those who know, those who do research, those who read, those who study, they understand. They know what the history was. They know what happened. And they know how the white European, you know, was in them Caucasus Mountains, in the caves and stuff like that, because they were albinos. They had oculine cutaneous, OCA, type 1, 2, 3, or 4. They didn't have melanin in their skin. They didn't have melanin to protect them from the sun. Melanin is a natural skin protectant, okay? Look at this beautiful melanin that I have. It's a natural skin protectant. I can stand in the sun all day long, from sun up to sundown, and not get burnt up, nothing. because the carbon 12 is going to protect my organs. It's going to rise up. The only thing that'll happen to me is I'll get darker, because I'm blessed with carbon 12, the melanin. All right. So the albino does not have that. And that's the Caucasian. Okay. They call the Caucasian a dead Asian. That's what Cauc means. So you look at the etymology of the word Cauc is dead. So it's a dead Asian. That's what Caucasian means. Coming from the Caucasus Mountains, Caucasian, dead Asian. So it's just like, you got to understand, you have to read this stuff. And when they say in this scripture, and the ark rested in the 7th month on the 7th day of the month upon the mountains of Ararat, Mount Ararat, which is in Turkey, East Turkey. Okay? It's giving you a clue. It's trying to tell you. And then they also trying to use the 7th month and the 7th day. They're trying to say that's the number of completion. No, it's not. 7, remember, signifies knowing thyself. Knowing thyself. Okay? Getting to know thyself. Understanding who you are. That's what the number 7 symbolizes. Spirit in numerology. Okay? Not the number of completion. Okay? So once you understand that they are trying to know who they are and understand themselves and knowing where they come from, and you put those dots together and you connect it, then you can know, like, oh, these are the white Europeans. This is what they talking about, their origin, how they originated. Okay. All right. Verse 5. And the waters decreased continually unto the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the 1st day of the month, were the tops of the mountains seen. Okay. So first time the ark was in, allegedly, Mount Ararat. How did they know they were in Mount Ararat? When they said in verse 5 that in the 10th month, the 1st day of the month, were the tops of the mountains seen. But in the 7th month, on the 7th day, they said they landed in Mount Ararat. Just one verse before this. You know what I'm saying? So what? 3 months later, now the water started to recede, and now all of a sudden, you know where you at? How did you know in the beginning? How did you know? How did the author of this story know the location of where the boat landed when the waters were not receded yet? Thinking about it. Think about it. So the author was trying to drop a clue and trying to tell you, these are where our people come from. This area, Mount Ararat, this area in Turkey, East Turkey, this is where our people derive from, in these mountains, in the caves. Okay. This is a clue that they're trying to tell you. All right. So in verse 5, it told you the waters didn't recede yet until the 10th month. But in the 7th month, in verse 4, they said they were in Mount Ararat. How did they know that? Think about it. Okay. But anyway, let's move on. Verse 6. And it came to pass at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the windows of the ark, which he had made. And he sent forth a raven, which went forth to and fro until the waters were dried up from off the earth. Very significant. Okay, I'm going to read that again. And he sent forth a raven, which went forth to and fro. Okay, until the waters were dried up from off the earth. Now, the verse before that, they said that the waters receded a little bit off the mountaintop. Now, this raven that he sent out, ravens are black, okay, in color. Black ravens are, pretty much symbolize, death, ill will. Sometimes, for the most part, they are very intuitive birds. They can mimic human speech. In the old times, they were used as carriers, to carry messages in their, claws and stuff. They would carry messages. You send a raven and then they'd be able to send a message, to someone, and the raven was symbolizing, a lot of different things. The raven had a lot of different symbolism in ancient times. Okay. But it also meant change and transformation. All right, so the symbology of the raven was there was a multiplicity of symbology for the raven, but it also signifies the change that occurred from the power or the rulership of Africans to the white European. Okay, so that's the symbology that is being depicted here. The raven went forth and to and fro until the waters were dried up from off the earth. Now, a couple of verses before that, just a few, inches had receded from the earth so they could see the tops of the mountains. But the raven is supposed to be flying the whole time until all of the water recedes off the earth. The raven is going to get tired. How is that going? The raven is going to die. Pretty much, how is the raven going to, keep going back and forth till the water's dried up? Allegedly, over the whole earth. How? Without resting. Okay, so it's symbolizing something deeper than that. It's telling you there's change occurring, transformation about to happen. All right, so the raven symbolizes that. Then they're saying that, the raven is bad luck, ill will, but the raven had a lot of different symbology in ancient times. A lot of ancient civilizations like the Asians and the Khmer dynasty, the Africans in Vietnam and Cambodia area and stuff like that. They had symbolized the raven as something, to be venerated. Somewhat, ravens were meant to have prophecy, and knowledge and wisdom and things of that nature. So the raven was very, venerated in different ancient cultures. All right. But in this story in the Bible, it's telling you that the raven was sent out, to go out and keep flying until the waters receded. How is that raven going to survive? It's not. So they're just sending out the death of the raven. That's what it's happening. It's telling you. It's sending out the death of the raven, which is symbolizing the end of black, African culture, African rulership. All right. The blackness of the dynastic civilizations that occurred in all of, the world where the Africans ruled. Now is coming the white European. The change and transformation that the raven symbolizes is coming. Okay, so the shift is happening. Remember the waters, all over the world, the flood allegedly, it was not a literal flood. It was not literal water, but it symbolized something significant, a catastrophic event occurring that causes change and shift to the entire world. Okay, so that's what that symbolized right there when the raven was sent forth until the waters were dried up, from the earth. So that's symbology of change and transformation that is occurring, shifting from black to white. And that's what it was. Okay. So verse 8, also, he sent forth a dove from him to see if the waters were abated from off the face of the ground. So right there, it tells you a dove, has several different colors, but the main one that we all know is the white dove, right? So it's giving you two different birds, the raven, which is a black bird, and then the dove, which is a white bird. So it's telling the transformation, the shift, and the change that is about to occur, from black rulership to white rulership, okay? When the Greeks come on the scene in 332 BCE, all right? So that's what it's telling you. So these albinos that are born are growing in number. So the author of this story is trying to give you this how it all began type of thing. This mythological story that's being, concocted here. They're trying to tell you that this is how, the rise of the white European had become. It started with one family, Noah, his wife, and then his sons and their wives, and then all the other animals that were on that boat with them, are the ones that were, chosen of God to be a part of this, new beginning that is occurring and things of that nature. So it's telling you symbolism. It's giving you symbolism. If you got to dig deeper to understand it, the symbolism, the symbology of what's happening. Okay. It's verse 9. But the dove found no rest for the sole of her foot. And she returned unto him into the ark, for the waters were on the face of the whole earth. Then he put forth his hand and took her and pulled her in unto him into the ark. You see that? So Noah sent the dove out. There was no where for the dove to land and, put their foot on dry land or nothing like that. So the dove was tired, right? And Noah took his hand and brought the dove back in to the ark. Okay. So it's symbolizing something there. I'm protecting you. You're my white, pure, peaceful spirituality. So the dove represents a lot of, things. If you look at the dictionary meaning of the dove and stuff, the symbolism, it'll tell you the dove is representing peace, love, spiritualness, purity. Everything associated with white is always pure and peaceful and loving. Everything associated with black is always evil, wicked, death, ill will. You know what I'm saying? So the two dynamics that you have there, the duality, the two dynamics. You remember I told you, left, right, evil, good, God, Satan, you know what I'm saying? Black, white. So you seeing it here, the duality again, the opposites. All right. So you're looking at the Bible is full of duality. So you're looking at the opposites, so you got to dig deeper to understand that there's a change that's shifting. And then also the meaning of those changes occurring, so everything black is now associated with darkness and death and, ill will, because the raven was not saved. The raven, he just let them go and they had to, fly to and fro until the waters of the earth dried up. Now that raven needs to rest too. The dove needed to rest and the raven needs to rest too. But did Noah reach his hand out to save the raven? No. It said Noah reached his hand out to save the dove and brought the dove back into the ark. Okay, so that's telling you something. We're killing off the black Africans and we're going to save all of our white, pure, peaceful, beings and things of that nature. So it's giving you that, racial undertone that's coming. All right. There's going to be a racial identification that is going to occur in the next few chapters, especially in chapter 9. So when we go into chapter 9 video, you're going to see the difference that is occurring. And there's going to be a racial identification and a racial establishment that will happen, that will start identification and distinction of different races on the planet, according to this mythological story. All right. So right now, these characters are white Europeans. Okay. They told you they were Mount Ararat. That's in Eastern Turkey. All right. Armenia, Iran, Iraq. You know what I'm saying? The Caucasus Mountains, the Georgia Mountains. That's all white European. That's Central Asia back in those times. Okay. So during those time frames, that is all white European land. All right. In those caves, in those mountains, and they're growing in numbers. And they're trying to tell you that this is their beginning. This is how they started. Okay. In this story. So you have to understand what happened in true, real history to be able to connect the dots. And that's what we're doing right now. Okay. Verse 10. And he stayed yet other 7 days. And again, he sent forth the dove out of the ark. And the dove came into him in the evening, and lo, in her mouth was an olive leaf plucked off. So Noah knew that the waters were abated from off the earth. All right. Less intense, receded a little bit and stuff like that. An olive leaf, so that's where, that saying is, or we're going to extend you an olive branch, give you mercy and things of that nature. That's where that saying comes from. The olive leaf was also symbolic of Jesus. You see all of these paintings and stuff like that of this fake white Jesus that you see everywhere. And they have sometimes a dove ascended. And we'll read a little bit further in the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, where Jesus was baptized and a dove, the Spirit was come down on Jesus when he was baptized. And it's like the symbol of a dove, so the dove is symbolic of, spirituality, peace, love, and all purity and all of that stuff. So that is the symbology that is being psychologically placed in your mind. And now you associate everything white with peace, love, purity. You know what I'm saying? That's the reason why I'm wearing this white shirt right now, to tell you that there's symbology in colors. There's symbology in, everything that you see, everything around you. Is kind of give you some form of, psychological, subconscious meaning. All right. So you got to understand the difference. And then everything black is now evil, wicked, deaf. You know what I'm saying? Just not good. But everything white, pure, holy, spiritual, good. So they associate everything black with evil and bad, and then everything white with good. All right, so good and evil. You know what I'm saying? The dualities and stuff like that, black and white. So you got to understand what is happening here and what's being established. Okay, so they're establishing this. And verse 12, and he stayed yet other 7 days and sent forth the dove, which returned not again unto him anymore. So again, here we go with the 7, the numerology. They trying to say, oh, it's the number of completion. Nope. We know that the number 9 is the number of universal completion. Number 7, the Greeks and the Romans changed the whole concept of the number 7, trying to make it into the number of completion, but it is not. It is the number of knowing thyself. Okay, coming to understand who you are. All right, so they keep using the number in the wrong context. All right, but they're putting it in your face all the time. And it came to pass in the 601st year, in the first month, the first day of the month, the waters were dried up from off the earth, and Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. And in the second month, on the 7th and 12th day of the month, was the earth dried. So now more time going by. So, and God spake unto Noah, saying, Go forth of the ark, thou and thy wife, and thy sons' wives with thee. Bring forth with thee every living thing that is with thee of all flesh, both of fowl and of cattle, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, that they may breed abundantly in the earth, and be fruitful and multiply on the earth. Did y'all just hear what I read? Did y'all hear what I just read? Verse 15 said, And God spake unto Noah. That's a private conversation. God and Noah, no one else. So how is the author of the story yet again giving us this detailed information about a private conversation that God had now with Noah? Who is this author? You know what I'm saying? So Francis Bacon concocting this story. He's writing this story. The same guy who wrote Shakespeare. This is his whole imagination. This is Francis Bacon's version of the Bible. Now, when you go back and you look at the Codex Sinaiticus, which is written in Greek, and then you look at the Latin, the Latin Vulgate, Vetus Latinus, you're looking at that. You're looking at different, verbiage and languages from this book. Those things don't add up to what you see in the English version. This is the English version. If you compare the Codex Sinaiticus with this one, side by side, they do not add up. They don't say the exact same thing. So where did Francis Bacon get this stuff from? He made it up. So if you take the Codex Sinaiticus and you take this King James Version, they're supposed to say the exact same thing. They're supposed to say the exact same thing, just in different languages. Okay? So one is in Greek, the other is in English. So you just supposed to translate it. Okay? And it's supposed to say the exact same thing. but it does not. It does not. So that's why this is called the King James Version. Okay? This is King James stuff. This is not what was, way back then or whatever. You know what I'm saying? In 332 BCE, with the Codex Sinaiticus in 332 AD, I'm sorry. When the Romans started doing all of this stuff. It's not the same context. It's not the same information. It's been changed several times. So it's not God's word. If it was God's word, it would be the exact same. No man or woman will be able to change it. It would be the exact same thing. You could go from this language, from speaking Chinese, to speaking English, to speaking Spanish, to speaking Italian, to speaking Dutch, Portuguese. You know what I'm saying? You could be speaking any kind of language, but you'll be saying the exact same thing. That's what a language, that's what a word from God would be. Okay? But it's not that. This book is not that. This is a story written by Francis Bacon, a white European French Mason who had an agenda of world domination, along with his King James. Okay? So you have to understand, this was written in 1611 AD, not too long after slavery happened. Not too long after. The transatlantic slave trade occurred. Arabs were enslaving Africans during that time, and then the Europeans got involved in the slave trade, and that's when it all started kicking off, you know what I'm saying? So the Arabs were, trade was enslaving Africans in the 1500s AD. And then the Europeans jumped on in the 1600s. Okay? This King James Bible came out in 1611 AD. Then they started mass producing it when Gutenberg in Germany created the printing press. Then they started mass producing it, sending it all over the world, everywhere. Everybody has to have a Bible. Everybody has to have one. Okay? Before, it was just one or two books in a priest, somewhere in their little vault or something like that, in their library or something like that, and they would read to the masses of the people, reading from the book of Genesis. And then the people would be like, because they were all illiterate. The masses of the population were illiterate. But those who were able to read, they were a part of the priesthood. They were a part of the royal family. They were a part of the, the governors or the authorities. They went to schools and everything like that. Everybody didn't go to school back then. Okay, during those times, like we do today. Everybody's forced to go to school now when you're born. You go at 5 years old. That's when they start indoctrinating you. The Hellenization process from the English, they start indoctrinating you in school at 5 years old. Kindergarten, that's where they start off at. But back then, school was meant for like special people, who had special positions, power and stuff like that. You didn't go to school unless you were, considered, special, or you had a position that you had to, be involved in. You know what I'm saying? You was a governor, you was a judge, or, you was a part of the royal family, the kings and queens, and it was a prince, a princess, and stuff like that. You was a part of the priesthood, the mystery schools and all of that stuff like that. You was an initiate. You know what I'm saying? Everybody didn't go to school, but the masses of the people were ignorant. They didn't know how to read. They knew how to speak and communicate with each other. They didn't know how to read. Most of them couldn't write. You know what I'm saying? So you got to think about the evolution of all of this stuff and how it evolved and how it came about. Okay? So you thinking to yourself in verse 15, man, that's a private conversation. And God spake unto Noah, saying all of this stuff, telling him what to do. Who was there to record that? Who was there to eyewitness that? Huh? That's Francis Bacon. That's his imagination running wild. You're like, come on, man. You gotta understand. Francis Bacon had a hell of an imagination. If you read Shakespeare, you'll understand. That's one of his other books. You know what I'm saying? So you gotta You got to understand. Okay, verse 18. And Noah went forth, and his sons, and his wife, and his sons' wives with him, every beast, every creeping thing, and every fowl, and whatsoever creepeth upon the earth after their kinds, went forth out of the ark. And Noah builded an altar unto the Lord. Stop right there. And Noah builded an altar, verse 20, unto the Lord, and took of every clean beast and of every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. Now, when you're doing stuff on the altar, a lot of people will associate this with paganism. Okay? A lot of people will associate this with witchcraft. You building altars. A lot of people will associate building altars with voodoo. Okay? So you have altars and stuff like that in the Bible. In Genesis, okay? But this is supposed to be the Holy Bible, where we believe in God. We believe in Jesus. We don't do no altars. No, he said it right there. And Noah build it, he said, an altar unto the Lord. So he built an altar and made burnt offerings of every clean fowl offerings unto the altar. Sacrifice unto this God. Okay? But when they had the Inquisition in the 1100s AD, and the Roman Catholic Church had sent out all of the Knights Templar to go out and kill and destroy anyone who did not convert to Catholicism or become a Catholic, they were killing off witches. Remember, they were burning witches at the stake and all of this stuff like that. There's a witch, burn them at the stake. And then all the people would gather around, and they would actually witness a witch going through being tortured and killed and stuff like that by these white Europeans who were in rulership, power. And everybody was calling them witches. But witches would have like little altars and stuff like that from the, they were putting together herbs and all of that stuff, spices and everything, coming up with potions and all of that good stuff. Natural stuff. You know what I'm saying? So herbalists today in 2022 would be considered a witch back then because, somebody, voodoo, you know what I'm saying? You have altars and stuff like that in voodoo. Ancient African spirituality had altars. Okay? So when you go back all the way and trace it back to the beginning, you understand the history and know, that altars were not, something evil and wicked. That's an African culture. That's a part of African culture. They paid homage, to the deities and gods and respect, by building a little altar, paying respect and homage, to the gods, the ancient African gods. So in this story right here, Francis Bacon knew that. They stole all the information from the African. Remember, I told you, the white European is the culture vulture of all time. They steal everything. You go to the British Museum right now, it's full of African artifacts. You go anywhere. They even stole African bodies and put them on display. You go to any museum, you're going to run into an Egyptian, part of the museum, and they're going to have Egyptian artifacts. Those are African artifacts. They're going to put mummies out there. Those are African bodies. That's just like them digging up your mama and daddy from the grave, wrapping them up and put them on display in a museum. But they don't do that for their people. You don't never see no white Europeans on display in any museum. No museum. Because they consider that disrespectful. But they will disrespect Africans all the time. And we pay money to go in and see these displays, these ancient Egyptian displays, mummies and stuff on display. People pay money to go and see Africans that they dug up from the grave and put on display. How disrespectful is that? But then they have in here, they doing altars unto the Lord. The same African spirituality practices that, ancient Africans had for several centuries. Everyone knew about it. Everyone was doing, altars and stuff like paying homage. You put little figurines or little stones or whatever, some twigs, some, some rocks or something like that. That's an altar. You paying homage back to the spirits, You paying respect back to your elders, who passed on, transitioned from this life and transition, their spirit transition to the next in the afterlife. You paying homage to the deities, you know what I'm saying, the gods and stuff like that. So there's your Bible. Plagiarizing again. The altar right there. Verse 20. And Noah, as soon as he got off the boat, he builded, they said, an altar unto the Lord, and took up every clean beast and every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. Doing what Africans always been doing, but yet and still, they want to change everything. Man, come on, man. They stealing the culture vultures. They're culture vultures. They plagiarize everything, remix it, turn it around and give it to a new generation who's coming into the world, born into the world and don't know no better. That's what they do. That's their MO. That's the makeup of the white European. All right. So here we go. Verse 21. And the Lord smelled a sweet savor. And the Lord said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground any more for man's sake. For the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I again smite any more everything living as I have done. So here's God. Feeling, remorseful after all of the death and devastation that he's caused. And you know what I'm saying? Here he is, repenting. He's saying this, I'll never kill another one ever again. No, will I do that? Not in my heart. No, because I have this sweet savor and I remember. Get out of here. Will you please have several seats, God? Please. Okay? Get out of here. Get out of here with all of this trying to feel sorry. Man, get out of here. Anyway, verse 22. While the earth remaineth seed time and harvest and cold and heat and summer and winter and day and night shall not cease. Okay. That's the end of chapter 8. All right. So it's a lot, that's happened, that's going on. So it's telling you the history. It's telling you the change that is occurring, the shift that is going to happen, from African rulership going into white European rulership. And they're trying to depict in this mythological story. This is not real. This is all fantasy in the minds and imagination of Francis Bacon, the author of this story, the author of this Bible. Okay, Francis Bacon wrote this King James Version that we using today in 2022. And we all following in every church, every Sunday morning and Wednesday night Bible studies and all of this. The preacher going up to the pulpit, preaching from this book, the same King James Bible version. Then they changed it to NIV to make it a little bit, softer and stuff for today's, English. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, come on, man. Come on, man. We got to understand the true history. You got to know what is happening. And the author is trying to set up the scene right now. They're going to establish in the next few chapters the different races on the earth and what their roles and their status will be. Okay? The next few chapters coming. Very interesting, very important. Okay? We're going to be talking about that. Chapter 9, 10, going forward. And we're going to be discussing the different races that were established on the planet. Okay? And it tells you in the story, the clues, how they landed on Mount Ararat, which is is eastern Turkey and stuff like that. So it's giving you the clues. Everything is there. The white European, which are derived and came from the albino. All right. So when the melanated Dravidian had an albino, they took those albino babies up to the eastern part of Turkey into those caves because they couldn't survive in the sun long enough. They could not do it. So they had to take them up there in order to survive. They were in those caves and they started mating with each other and growing in number. Okay? They started mating with each other and a change occurred. And they came down out of those Caucasus Mountains and out of the Mount Ararat in Turkey and Armenia. They came down to the south, start mixing in with the African Sumerians in the region of Iran and Iraq. Okay? They started mixing in, having babies with them. And then those babies ultimately became the Persians. Okay. Then the Persians ultimately became the Arab that you see to get today. The more mixing in, okay? And then they started, the Europeans, the white European albinos started, those children had a little bit more melanin in them because they mixed in with the Africans, had a little bit more melanin. Those children evolved and started going into Europe, okay? Rome, Italy, coming out. That's Greece over there, the Greeks and everything like that. So those evolved. That's the evolution. It's the historical fact. Everything is happening. And they're trying to give you clues in this mythological story of how that began. All right. So with that being said, we're going to get into it. This has been another Maarifa moment where knowledge has been reborn, man. Remember now, the more you know, the more you'll grow. And the better off we all shall be. So until next time, you know what I'll say. Love and light. Peace.